On October 1st, when Iran struck Israel, just a day before that, Israel announced this ground operation into Lebanon. We know that Hezbollah has not been defeated, and now Israel's also talking about wrapping this ground operation up. And I believe now there's talks about a ceasefire, which confuses me a bit, because Israel has been avoiding any kind of ceasefire throughout this whole period after October 7th. Maybe I get you and Scott first about the overall military situation, as well as what you know about this ceasefire conversation when it comes to Lebanon.
Well, I mean, I'll go real quick. Look, Israel had hoped that by killing Hassan Nasrallah, by neutralizing Hezbollah's senior leadership, by paralyzing middle management with this pager, this ingenious yet criminal pager and radio attack, that Hezbollah was a ship without a rudder, and that they would be able to come in and make short work of the Hezbollah forces in southern Lebanon, push them back north of the Litani River, and then cause the collapse of Hezbollah as a viable resistance organization, thereby diminishing its attractiveness as a political movement in Lebanon, and effectively nullified it. That was the objective. They also, again in typical Israeli fashion, took this objective, and they said, but we're also really doing this to get the 60,000 Israeli settlers who have been compelled to leave their homes because of the ongoing violence to return home. That this is all about the return of the settlers home. Israel's just been wrong on their assessment of Hezbollah. Yes, they took out the leadership. Yes, there was some momentary chaos when you have 1,000 guys go down with injuries from pagers, but not a single settler has returned home. Moreover, tens of thousands more are going to be evacuated. Hezbollah has not been defeated. Like any mature military organization, they have extreme resilience. You have, every commander has a deputy. You kill the commander, the deputy steps up, and that deputy has a deputy. You kill the deputy steps up. I mean, anybody who's been in the military knows that. Kill the colonel, you get the lieutenant colonel. Kill the lieutenant colonel, you get the major. You have to kill a couple majors, and you're going to get the senior captain. You kill enough senior captains, you get junior captains, then you get first lieutenants, and you get second lieutenants, then you get the first sergeants, and it never ends until at the end of the day, a lance corporal is going to step up and take charge, and then the war is over, because once the lance corporals are in charge, nobody can beat the Marine Corps. But Hezbollah is that way. They have depth. They have tremendous depth charts. They have deep bench, and they've recovered, and they are rocking and rolling. Their military capabilities have not been destroyed or diminished. They're rocketing Israel on a daily basis, not haphazardly, not doing what Israel is doing to the Lebanese people, collective punishment, etc., hitting military targets with great efficiency. And now they're telling the people of Kiryat Shimona, leave, not because we're going to blow up your homes, because the Israeli military is using your village, your town, as an assembly point, and we're now going to rain death and destruction down upon them. This means that not only has Netanyahu failed to return to 60,000, he's now going to have 20 to 30 additional thousands of Israelis leave their homes. This is a strategic defeat for Israel across the board. The ceasefire is an act of desperation. The ceasefire isn't linked at all to what's going on with Hamas. The ceasefire is Israel and Hezbollah. Israel is begging Hezbollah to stop fighting because it's out of control. As I said, their military doesn't want to do this anymore. The Israeli military is starting to refuse orders. You're seeing a revolt of the generals saying, this is unobtainable. We can't do this. And so it's an act of, Hezbollah will not accept the ceasefire. I can't speak on behalf of Hezbollah. I'm not affiliated with them in any way, shape, or form. But Hezbollah, why would you accept this ceasefire? You're winning. That's what people don't understand. Hezbollah is winning. How can they win, Scott? They lost Nasrallah. Nasrallah doesn't matter. Never did. Nasrallah admitted it himself. I am a dead man walking. I am a living martyr. They are trying to kill me, and one day they will kill me, and it doesn't matter. None of these lives matter, because once we die, others will step up. The resistance movement will never be defeated, because it's not about a person. It's not a cult of personality. It's about an ideology. It's about a belief. And the Hezbollah faithful are as committed to their mission as anybody. So they're not going to accept a ceasefire. They are going to continue doing what they're doing until which time Hamas emerges victorious. And Hamas's victory will be judged by the creation of a Palestinian state.
Then what happens to Netanyahu is the real question here. It seems to me that Netanyahu has been grievously guilty of the old Greek classical flaw, tragic flaw, in the tragedies of hubris. He's had this thing going with the United States forever, but there are limits to how much he can accomplish in Israel. All these people that had been up there, not by Lebanon, still not going home. Scott predicts that 30,000 more will not be able to stay there. Hamas is not dead. And so what does a person like Netanyahu do in such circumstances? That's really scary. Because, he thought, well, this is what he said in, 2001. He was in a private home with some real supporters for his party. And there was a videographer there, and he said, turn that thing off, but he forgot to turn it off. Now, I've watched that video more than once. I transcribed it. This is what Netanyahu said. See if you find a tinge of hubris behind it. The main thing, this is a quote, main thing first and foremost is hit those Palestinians hard. Not just one hit, but many painful, so that the price will be unbearable. The price is not unbearable yet. A total assault on the Palestinians to bring them to a state of panic that everything is collapsing. Fear that everything will collapse. That's what we'll bring them to. A woman interrupts. Wait a minute. At that point, the whole world is going to say, what are you, occupiers? The world will say nothing, says Netanyahu. The world will say that Israel has the right to defend itself. Woman. But so you're not afraid of the world, Bibi? No. Quote, especially now with America. I know what America is. America is a thing that can easily be moved in the right direction. The Americans will not bother us. Let's suppose the Americans, will say something to us. Israelis, so they say it. So what? 80% of the American people support us. It's absurd. We have such great support there, and we say, what will we do now with such support? Why do I give a rendition of this? Not only to illustrate hubris on steroids, but to say, I don't think it's 80% any longer. I think there are enough Americans that are just horrified, as I am and as Scott is, at the notion that our country is not only supporting but enabling genocide, that this guy, Netanyahu, is going to lose the support of a lot of Americans despite the lobby and despite all the campaign contributions. The bets are off after this election. We'll have to see. We know that there's no real prospect that Trump, if he wins, will be any better than Biden with respect to being an arch Zionist, but those things change. And while on the ground, Netanyahu is increasingly unsuccessful, and while he's challenged more and more, not only from the right that he should finish these people off, but from what remains of the left in Israel, well, my fear, of course, is that he'll resort to the Samson option, which you probably know is using his nuclear weapons. And, this kind of mentality is not above doing precisely that, or at least threatening to do precisely that. So there's talk now about Iran developing a nuclear weapon. As I'm sure you know, Danny, and Scott has written, they're very close to being able to do that. It's been an anomaly for 20 years as to why they haven't done that. But it was a national intelligence estimate in November of 2007 that said they stopped working on a nuclear weapon in 2003 and had not resumed work on a nuclear weapon. Some reputable scholars, like some reputable, say they never were working on a nuclear weapon. Okay, so will they do it now? Well, there are voices within Iran that say, well, maybe we ought to do that. That's the guarantee. I don't know what they'll do. This fatwa, the religious edict against it, is reversible. It comes from Khomeini way back then. So I don't know. I'd ask Scott. Scott, do you think that the Iranians will feel the need to reverse the fatwa and go ahead and do what's necessary to construct a nuclear weapon with, as opposed to the nuclear material, which they're very clear to having? They have the enriched uranium all set to go. What do you think, Scott? Under what circumstances would Iran actually start working on the nuclear weapon part of the nuclear force?
I believe the fatwa has already been reversed. The reason why I say that is that the conversation that's taking place in Iran is being done within the circles of people who advise the supreme leader. It's not, like, in the United States where, you have a think tank here and a think tank there and a think tank here speculating. When you have a former foreign minister who currently sits on the Expediency Discernment Council, which is a close advisory body to the supreme leader, saying that the fatwa is reversible under certain circumstances, and these circumstances have been met. You don't have somebody who, is that close to the supreme leader talking about something that's the exclusive purview of the supreme leader, the fatwa, and talking about it being reversible unless that conversation's already been had with the supreme leader and a decision has been made under which circumstances the fatwa would be reversed. We had, a very senior member of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Command, the man responsible for the nuclear aspect of it, say the same thing, that this is reversible and that we can do this. You have the people in the parliament saying that, writing a letter to the supreme leader saying, we advise you to reverse this fatwa and to begin preparation for the bomb. Again, none of this stuff happens in a vacuum. It's happened because this conversation has already taken place inside the inner circles of the Iranian leadership, and a decision has been made that the fatwa is reversible, and they've specified the conditions under which it will be reversed, and several of these advisors have said those conditions have been met. So I believe that the decision has been made to reverse this. That doesn't mean they've actually done that yet, because in order to do this, in order to build a nuclear weapon, Iran will have to withdraw from the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. They will have to end their safeguards agreements with the IAEA inspectors, kick the inspectors out, and then do a major diversion program. It will only take them a matter of days to run enough 60% highly enriched uranium hexafluoride feedstock through the advanced IR6 and IR8 centrifuge cascades that they've put in to get it up to the 90+% level needed for for a nuclear weapon. It doesn't take that long at all. Iran has all the processes in place. They've installed the centrifuge cascade already. That went in back in July. It's there. It's ready to be used. As I said, they can get enough fissile material for a bomb within 3 days. They can have enough for 3 to 5 bombs within a little bit more than a week. And if you use a gun design which is just so simple. We, even in World War II, the bomb we dropped on Hiroshima was a gun design. It wasn't the design that was tested in Alamogordo. That was a plutonium design, an implosion weapon, very sophisticated, very difficult to produce. Gun design is so easy, so basic. You didn't have to test it. You knew it was going to work. So everybody's saying, well, the Iranians will have to test it. They'll have to do this. Not a gun design. And a gun design will take 75 to 150 pounds of high enriched uranium. You can turn that into a weapon. Let's say you use 100 pounds of 125 pounds of highly enriched uranium. You'll need a weapon of around 600, 800, 900 pounds that'll go on a warhead. The Fatah 2 warhead can carry a 900-pound payload. So they already have a missile capable of carrying a gun size design. Now people say, well, Scott, the gun design that we dropped on Hiroshima weighed a lot more than that. Yeah, but again, the Iranians aren't stupid. The gun design that we used in 16-inch shells weighed 600 pounds. So I'm here to tell you right now that it's possible to build a 20 kiloton gun uranium bomb that can fit on an existing warhead design of an existing Iranian missile. And we already saw that the Iranians can hit any target they want to in Israel anytime they want to. So I think the decision's been made. And if Israel's stupid enough to move forward and attack Iranian nuclear infrastructure or target Iranian leadership or do something that puts Iran's existential existence into play, then the fatwa will be immediately revoked. And Iran already has all the pieces in place to have a nuclear warhead on a missile within a week, ready to deliver against Israel.
Andy, could I ask one more question?
Of course.
This is great. I'm getting an education here. So the Israelis' capability for intelligence gathering will know exactly when and what the Iranians are doing in terms of reversing the fatwa and building a nuclear weapon. Will they let them do it, or will they strike first with their own nuclear weapon?
That's the million-dollar question. I think the Iranians have built into their scenario the potential of an Israeli nuclear first strike. What many in the West don't realize is that at the end of when we invaded Iraq back in 2003, you remember General Wesley Clark talking about a meeting at the Pentagon and the 7. This was the first of going to be, a cascading, reign of democracy coming down on the Middle East as regimes were overturned. And one of the governments that was up for target was the Iranian government. We wanted to overthrow them. And the Iranians were convinced that the United States, after they took care of Saddam, and maybe after they took care of Syria, was going to turn on and invade Iran. And so they went underground with everything. They brought in North Korean specialists, and they broke Iran into independent military districts capable of sovereign operations, meaning that if the United States did take out leadership in Tehran, these military districts will continue to resist on their own. They're self-sustaining, capable not just of defensive operations, but offensive operations. And everything went underground. And they designed specific capabilities, including their continuity of government. If you go to the Mashhad out west, it's an underground city built to survive an Israeli nuclear strike, an American nuclear strike. The Firdos nuclear enrichment facility is designed to survive a nuclear strike. And so my point is, I think the Iranians have built in resilience in this nuclear weaponization program, if it is activated, that allows it to absorb an Israeli nuclear strike and still be able to produce a weapon capable of being delivered against Israel. Moreover, and it's not talked about too much, Pakistan has let it be known through various channels that if Israel uses a nuclear weapon against Iran, a Muslim weapon will be used against Israel. You can read that any way you want to. Meaning that I think what the Pakistanis are saying is, if Israel strikes Iran with a nuclear weapon, that's striking a Muslim nation, and Pakistan will never allow that to happen without consequence, and Pakistan will take Israel off the face of the earth. So it's the idea that Israel is going to be able to do things like this. The Samson option was never meant to be preemptive. The Samson option was meant to be reactive. As Israel is going down, Israel takes out everybody, just like Samson did in the Bible. What we're talking about here is an Israeli preemptive nuclear strike, which is the suicide of Israel. Israel will never survive politically if it carries out a preemptive nuclear strike under any conditions, under any circumstances. So I don't see Israel doing this. I don't see Israel launching a preemptive nuclear strike against Iran. And I don't see the United States doing it. Barack Obama's worst nightmare, because if you go back to the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the Iran nuclear deal that was negotiated in 2015, the whole idea was to get a 1-year breakout window, meaning that you have this plan in place, and even if Iran decides to violate this plan, it'll take them a year from the moment of violation to be able to produce enough fissile material for a nuclear weapon. Because Obama was looking at the continued U.S. policy was so ineffective that Iran was going to get to a position where it was literally weeks away from having a nuclear bomb, and then that would create impermissible stresses on American decision making on how to respond to this. We needed at least a year to be able to do this kind of stuff. Guys, we're down to days. It's over. I mean, Donald Trump laugh every time. Iran will never be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. Hey, Donnie, baby, they got it, and there's nothing you can do about it. Joe Biden, not on my watch. Iran will never. Joe, they got it, and it's your fault. 100% your fault, Joe. You could have stopped this. You could have prevented this. You could have brought the JCPOA back into play. We could have got the inspectors back in. We could back, maybe not to a year breakout, but we could have 6 months, 8 months with inspectors in place, and no reason for Iran to change its fatwa. But no, you had to be stupid. And so here we are right now, where Iran has basically wiped the slate clean. They're down to having a nuclear bomb within days of the political decision being made. There's nothing the United States, Israel, or anybody can do about it. It's over. The idea that we were going to checkmate Iran and prevent them from going nuclear, it's over. Iran will go nuclear anytime it wants to go nuclear. And I have to say that until which time, the world has the wherewithal to talk about the denuclearization of Israel, you're never going to get Iran to walk its nuclear program back. Never. Yeah. It will never, ever, ever, ever happen, because it's the only thing that keeps them alive.